Are you ready to learn how to grow your interior design business? Welcome to the lounge, the Chase Lounge. So get comfortable, grab a glass of Cabernet, and let's talk the business of interior design. Now, here's your host, Nick May.
Well, welcome, and thanks for joining me today in the lounge. I'm Nick May, your host, and today we're going to be talking about growing your interior design business. So whether you're in Chicago, Milan, or New York City, I know you want to do one thing. You want to grow your interior design business, and we're going to do that by finding out how successful designers do that from around the world. So today's the show that we call Industry, and it's where Phyllis Harbinger comes on and talks to me about a specific topic. And today we're going to talk a little bit about time management. Now, it's kind of exciting that I'm actually in New York City. I am in the middle of doing recordings for Kips Bay, the show house in New York City. Many of you probably already know about the Kips Bay show house. It is the elite show house in all of the country, really. And I have come out here to interview some of the designers that were featured in the show, and we're going to be talking on that show about what does it take? What does it take to get there? What does it take to do a room? So that show is going to be coming up probably within the next week or two. I have to go through all of the content and figure out how much, whether it's going to be on one show or two, but that is going to be really, really great stuff for you guys, I think. Also, later in the show, I have a fantastic conversation with Ellen O'Neill. Now, if you are not familiar with that name, Ellen is the creative director over at Benjamin Moore. So, obviously, we like Benjamin Moore a lot around here. But one of the cool things is she is the gal who selects the color of the year. Well, she's a big part of that process. We get into that in our conversation, and so we'll let Ellen explain how that goes. So one of the sponsors for our show has been Design Manager, and they've been with me almost since the beginning. Design Manager was like my first sponsor for the show. So super excited about Design Manager, but what was really exciting this week being out in New York is that I finally got to meet Lindsay Paoli, who is she was the marketing manager for Design Manager when we first started with them, but now she has moved up in the company. I don't know, maybe she's like the COO now. But it was very fun for me to actually meet her this week, and we were talking, and she was letting me know that lots of the guests that I've had on the show, while we didn't talk about it because I wasn't aware of the fact that they were using Design Manager, a lot of the past guests that we've had on the show actually are using Design Manager. So a couple that come to mind that we talked about: Taylor & Taylor down in Florida, Gil Walsh, who was recently on the show, Phyllis Harbinger, of course, we've talked about that, and she's talked about the fact that she uses Design Manager, and the new ASID president who's currently there in Metro New York right now, Robin Barron. I just did an interview with her just the other day while I was here in New York, and she is also a user of Design Manager. So kind of cool. I want to find out exactly how many of our last guests that we've had on the show are using Design Manager. So we're going to be working together to find out a complete list. But if you don't use Design Manager, you need to be using Design Manager. It is a fantastic way for you to get everything in one place, super easy, super affordable for your business, and you can have a free trial. Just go over to designmanager.com and try it out. So let's jump into my conversation with Phyllis Harbinger. Well, joining me once again in the lounge is Phyllis Harbinger. Hey, Phyllis.
Hey, Nick. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. Well, it's been a little bit since we have chatted because we got interrupted with me going to High Point.
Yes, which I know was fabulous, and you saw a lot of my friends and colleagues, and I'm really excited for the interviews that you were able to do there live. That was awesome.
Yeah, it was really fun. So today I wanted to talk to you a little bit, Phyllis, about a topic that I deal with, and I'm assuming that most of our listeners deal with. You may probably deal with this as well, and that's the topic of time management and hiring folks to help you.
Oh, yes. And in fact, that is an acutely timely topic for today because 2 weeks ago, Monday, my junior designer of 5.5 years left our company, left our team. She's now working 8 minutes from her home, not doing interior design, but doing industrial design and just drawing all day, which is what she loves. So I was presented with my own time management dilemma, but also a dilemma on many different levels because we bring people in, we spend a lot of time training them, and then we start giving away a lot of the tasks and the areas of expertise that we might have owned previously. And then we finally have trust and someone that can take that over so we can pursue other parts of the business and also do more rainmaking and business development. And then all of a sudden you're like, uh-oh, because seriously, no one's coming in 2 weeks' time to take that person's place. One of the interesting things that happened this time, because I've done this now a number of times over the 23 years I've had my business, I really took a pause and I said, you know what, let me really think about this because my business has been shifting because as you and our listeners know, my heart is truly in a space of really wanting to coach and strategize and speak and teach. And the design aspect of the business, while I still love it, is not as much in my forefront right now of what really gives me charge. I love to work with clients, but I'm much more intrigued at the moment with the new prospect of my other business.
Sure, you're pivoting.
Exactly. So while I'm usually the type of person that has to have every duck in a row, has to know exactly what's going to happen from 1 minute to the next, I decided that I was going to take my own advice and look at things, take a step back, and think about a course correction. That is what I've been doing now since Charity gave notice, and she gave me plenty of notice, and I ended up not even taking. I opted to not take as much as she was going to give me because we were at a place where I didn't really want her starting things that she couldn't finish. I felt like, you know what? I want to look back at what really worked for me in the past. And I made a list of all the pros and cons of having a full-time person, what that person's responsibilities would be, and then looking at the idea of freelancing and building my team in a different methodology than I've been using over the last maybe 8 to 10 years. I'd say it's more like 10 years or 12 years, actually, where I had full-time support and then the ancillary support. And thinking about how that might work and shifting to the new paradigm that I want to be more involved with. And it started to feel really, really good. And so I want people that are listening to just understand that just because something works for a certain period of time doesn't mean that's the only way things can work, and that you should be okay and open to exploring things and course correcting, and even just looking and taking kind of a pulse on what's happening in your business, because our business definitely has ebbs and flows. Your pipeline changes with the wind, and hopefully you all have a very, very strong pipeline at all times. But we all know in this business that that's not generally the way things roll. Looking at things and making sure that you are fat in certain places, that you've got reserves, and that you can weather storms is super important. And also making sure that you are covering the time that you need to cover and giving yourself time for business development, but not overextending yourself at the expense of someone else's livelihood. I think that's a really important topic. And I'm sure in your business, you've gone back and forth many times with kind of building and kind of shrinking your staff and your team.
Yeah, I kind of have to look at my business in two different kind of zones or areas. You know, we have our production team, and that is impacted more so based on, you know, the ebbs and flows of the seasons and where we know we have our busy seasons and the lighter seasons. Then I have my office staff, and, you know, we've kind of gone to a unique model. And I think a lot of people get stuck with the idea that if they're going to hire somebody, they have to hire somebody on a full-time basis. And I have taken a little bit of a different approach. It's not that I, looked at any one person and said, well, how do you do it? But I've kind of just, by trial and error, I have a variety of different ways that I have people that work for me doing office type of stuff. I've got a full-time office manager. That stuff has to happen all the time. So she handles everything from phone calls to scheduling our guys, and then also works with our customers on payments. Then I have somebody that we just brought in this year. So this is kind of new for us. I have somebody that's part-time, so she's probably 20 to 25 hours a week. She comes to my office 3 days a week, so we see each other and we talk about things. And then 2 days a week, she actually works from home. So I set her up with a laptop. We use VoIP phone systems, so it's all internet-based, and she has access to everything. And then we have a third person who covers phones for us on the weekends, because for what I do, we get a lot of calls because I do a lot of marketing stuff like on Facebook. And so we saw that we had a large number of calls and emails that would come in over the weekend. And the funny thing is we would always get these calls and emails on Friday at about like 7 o'clock or 6 o'clock, right after we've left the office, right? And so now those people are having to wait all the way till Monday morning, right, to get a call back. So what I decided to do is I hired somebody on a very part-time basis. She works completely from her house, and I think she works like 3 hours on Friday. She works 2 hours on Saturday and on Sunday. It's very flexible for her. I said, you know what? It's better if you do it in the afternoon, but just take 2 hours, check all of our email accounts, check our messages that come in from the different places, and then check voicemail, and then make those phone calls, whatever you've got, make them for that day. If people don't call us back, that's fine. Let's just make an attempt to get back out so people aren't waiting all the way until Monday morning. Because the other thing that was happening was Monday morning would come and we would have all of these calls.
Right. And then you can't get your week started.
And then we couldn't start anything else. And so it was overwhelming my office manager. And so that's been a good fit for us. And then on top of all of those kind of relationships, I have other people that I pay on a per project basis. So like for the podcast here, I have 2 guys that actually do editing for me. And so I just found that it was easier to have 2, because if something came up last minute, I had to get it done. So I kind of go back and forth between those 2 guys. And then I've got one gal who does our blog posting. So she just works on, again, project basis. So she just works when we have her. And that way I have the experts doing what the experts can do.
And that makes total sense. And I also have a very similar kind of staffing situation where I've got my social media person who does my Instagram posts and Facebook, and now she took over my 2 newsletters when Charity left, because Charity was setting those up for me. And now she's doing that, and she's grown my Instagram account 250% since August.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm really excited about that. She just told me yesterday. She said, it's our anniversary and we've grown 250%.
So let me ask you, where did you start and where are you at now?
Well, I started with nothing, maybe like 100, and now I've got, I think, 750, I think she said.
Nice.
Yeah,
nice. So
it's growing. I mean, we post 3 times a week. I don't post every day, but it's definitely growing, and I'm excited about that. And she takes them and then she uses the content for Facebook and Twitter. And so it's really wonderful. And then she's now done one of the newsletters. So this will be her second one that goes Friday. So she's getting the hang of that. And so I don't have to deal with that aspect of things, which really helps me. I mean, I, of course, curate the content and stuff, because I think that if it's your account, you have to be a part of it. That's what my social media guru always tells me, that you can't give that power away to somebody else, because then it's not your voice. Right. So that's an important thing for everybody to think about when you are hiring social media experts, that you really want to make sure that it is your voice that's resonating through all of this and not somebody else's, because that's the power of social media, is really being authentic.
Right. I'm going to throw out a Facebook tip, and I guess you could use this for other social media as well, but we were having a hard time having enough content for somebody in the office to get it out there on a regular basis. And so what we did was we started and we created an internal private Facebook group for just my guys in the field. And what we do is when they're out on projects, we tell them, hey, take pictures every day of what you're working on, the dog in the corner.
Great idea.
You guys taking a break, whatever it is, just take the pictures and put it into our Facebook, our safe, no one else can see it kind of thing, you know? And then Candace, who's in the office, and when she's doing posting and she needs some content, she can just open that up and pull the pictures. And so then she always has a plethora of pictures, everything from, hey, here's the dog, to, actually just posted one of those yesterday because we always make sure that the dog's, penned up. And so it was this really sad puppy dog that was behind the gate and he just wanted to come and be with us, but posted that. Everything from that to fantastically finished end projects. And so that's been a great way to always have content to put up.
And we do something similar for anyone that doesn't feel that they can do the Facebook page, the private Facebook page. We create photo streams and we share them with our team. And once the stream is created, we can add to it. So as a job progresses, we have a record in a photo stream and we can pull from that for content as well.
How is that at?
The photo stream? It's in the iCloud.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
Yeah, so that works super well, and it shows up on our phones, or if you have a Mac, it's on your computer, or if you download the iCloud to a regular PC, it comes up on there. But you always have it available to you to pull from. Sure. So it's awesome, and your whole team can always access all of the content on a stream if you invite everybody.
Oh, okay. I wasn't familiar with. Yeah, so basically the same thing, but we also use the Facebook page for internal stuff like, hey, we're going to do an event, we're going to go do something together, or hey, we got this really great recommendation letter or, comment back from a customer, way to go, Travis. So it's kind of a bulletin board because we don't have guys coming back to an office, and so that way they can always stay abreast of what's going on.
That's awesome. I love that idea. That's a great way to work with your team if you don't have like an Asana or something like that, a base camp. So that's a cool thing.
Super simple, easy. Free. You gotta love the cost.
Yeah, totally. But back to the whole time management thing. Yeah. I think that you really have to sit and say, what do I do? Like, that's why whenever I speak, I talk about different time management apps that are really helpful, like ClickTime, and there's a whole bunch of others. And it's really helpful for you to really get a hold of what your time is and what the other people on your team are doing with their time and how much time it takes to do X, Y, and Z. And then really look at that and say, okay, so could I have a part-timer doing this? Could the person work remote? Could I hire a virtual assistant? Could I hire Ruby? There's this Ruby service that answers your phones as you, and they're very cheerful and wonderful, and nobody knows that your phone's not being answered in your office. So that's another way to do it if you don't have someone like you found someone great that will do it on the weekends. But if you can't find that resource, it might be really super helpful to use a virtual assistant, which is the same thing as what you have, but they're not close by and you don't know them.
And I'm a big proponent of virtual assistant. In fact, one of our sponsors is VA Staffer. They have a team of folks over in the Philippines, and actually that's a whole nother aspect I didn't even mention, but they do all of our back-end web stuff, creating content, automation, kind of all the technical side of things.
Yes.
Like we're not technical. I don't want to spend, there's classes on learning WordPress and how to do all that stuff. And I just don't have time for all that.
Not a good use of your time.
No,
and you don't like it probably either.
Right, exactly. I can create a blog post. I can open up Word and do all that kind of stuff. But I want them to make all the changes. We're adding some things to the Chaise Lounge website, and it was simply, adding a task in an online portal, and within 8 hours, I had a new button and actually, if you go to the website, you'll see a pop-up. We have a pop-up that comes up that asks people for their name and their email address, and we'd never had that before. And that literally was a couple hours after I had put the request in, and all of a sudden it's there.
Yeah, that's terrific. That's terrific. And I do think that you spending the time doing these things is clearly not conducive to building your business. It's really not.
Absolutely not. There's a lot of people that try to save every single dime, and I'm frugal, way more frugal than most people, but I do see the value in hiring people that know what they're doing, because if it's going to take me, let's say it would take me 3 hours to figure it out and then to do it, then it's going to take somebody else that knows how to do it probably 20 minutes.
Correct.
And that value is huge, especially when a lot of times if I'm talking to my VA, we're paying 10 or 12 bucks an hour on that, which is, when you look at 20 minutes, that's like nothing.
That's exactly right. And not only that, but if you are working with people in other countries, you're providing an income stream for them.
Yes.
And so that is something to feel good about as well for people that might not have it otherwise. There's a lot of different ways to spin it and look at it. But for me, I like having a lot of different people doing different things and segmenting it so that you're not stuck at the end of the day. And when Charity did give her notice, I reached out to a whole bunch of people that have been support for me in the past and part of our team. And they were all interested in freelancing in different ways. And so I feel like I am completely going to be supported without having to rush back into hiring somebody full-time, W-2, taxes, now insurance, which is mandatory, all of those things that go along with a salary and sometimes are at least another third to a half of the person's salary.
Not only that, but you get the best of the best because then you get somebody who's really good. Take, for example, we were trying to have, first I was having Candace do all the blog posts and she's like, Nick, I'm not good at it. I don't like doing it. So we need to give it to somebody else. Well, then we gave it to Marianne. So Marianne answers the phones on the weekends and she was, I think, a little bit better than Canvas, but still not fantastic as far as knowing how to pull out the content and being really invested in interior design, because I think that's important. And so I actually put a Craigslist ad out. And I said I was looking for somebody who's interested in interior design, and I'd like to pay you on a per project basis. And we've got this great gal. She's got a full-time job, but she has a background in the industry. And so now she does all of it. And it's, oh my gosh, it's 20 times better than what we were doing by ourselves. Trying to force the square peg in the round hole.
Right. Right. And I think that was a brilliant move. And, you know, Craigslist is great. There are so many different ways. Editor at Large is another really great list where you can find good people. And I think that when you look in the right places and you talk to the right people, they're out there and they find you or you find them. I mean, I, as we've talked about, have a very interesting gig going on because I get to cherry pick the most incredible people from my classes at FIT.
Right. Yeah.
And so I know what they're capable of before they walk into my office. I know who
You're cheating.
Never. I am, but you know what? I work hard there for, you know, a professor's salary. I do it not for the money. I do it for the joy of giving back. And that's kind of one of my perks for teaching.
That's right.
Is that I get to meet and pick from the cream of the crop and know, you know, who has my work ethic, who has this talent, who's going to be a good fit for our team. That's a big thing. I don't ever have that learning curve. So I'm kind of lucky in that respect in terms of the people that I've brought on from intern to full-time. I've known them all, every single one of them. So I never had to guess. And that's been huge for me. So now I went back to a bunch of them and then I spoke to someone that used to work full-time for me. She just had a baby and she's interested in freelancing now too. So there's just so much opportunity out there if you sit in a space of allowing yourself to receive what you need and not effort. I think that we all effort too much about too many things. You just said it perfectly. You're putting a square peg in a round hole. We effort. And when you don't effort and you just say, you know what? I'm going to do what I need to do and put it out there. And the right people are going to show up. And they always do. If you worry about it, nothing good happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the biggest lesson I think that I've had throughout this last month has been to just really be in trust and be in faith and to know that the right people are going to surround me and support me. I mean, I have my bookkeeper, I have my project manager. And then the wildest thing happened. There was a woman who I interviewed in 2008 when Elif moved to California. That was my first full-timer. And I interviewed her and she just wasn't ready yet to come on to the amount of responsibility that we had here. She has a 4-year degree from FIT. She worked a little bit, like maybe for 2 years or 3 years, and then she had small children. And now she's been doing some design on the side, but she also has like a house cleaning business of Polish women that she runs. And so she was at my house 2 weeks ago, and I don't know, it just dawned on me. And I looked at her and I said, I think it's time for you to step back into what you love. And I said, and we don't have to step in a big way. We can step in baby steps. And so we started talking about it. We dialogued about it. And I said, why don't you go home and think about it with your husband and see what's going to work for you. And then let's talk again and see where you might fit into our organization. And she's interested and she wants to come in. And she lives 10 minutes away.
That's great.
Yeah. So, and that never happens here.
Yeah.
Because I'm not in the city.
Right.
So it's just not that I need somebody here all the time, because I don't, because we're always out in the field, but still it was just right there in front of me. I think that that's something that a lot of us miss because we get so involved in the minutia of this business. And even in your part of the business, you've seen what we do. You know how many details are involved.
There's a ton.
It's incredible. And so when you're so stuck in the minutia, you sometimes don't step outside to see the big picture.
Right.
And I want people to really kind of think about it. It doesn't make you better to have a full-timer or a part-timer or freelancers or virtual people. It's what works for you, works for your bottom line, and makes you feel good at the end of the day. That's what you have to think about. Everybody has a different way of running their business, and the business is changing. So you've got to think about how you change to work with what's changing in our industry.
Yeah. So if you are by yourself doing everything all the time, feeling stressed out, feeling overwhelmed, know that you can do the baby steps and start, whether that's a virtual assistant, whether that's somebody very part-time, whether that's, project basis, or reaching out to somebody like Ruby Reception, who's out of Portland, I think.
Yes.
And having somebody just answer your phones. Like, that's one more thing that takes up your time, takes you away from those higher dollar items or things that you need to do in your business that really create the value.
Yes. And one other thing that happened this week that I just want to share is about boundaries. And especially if you are a solopreneur, one thing I do suggest you do if you're a solopreneur is get a bookkeeper. They could be virtual. They can come into your books once a week. They can come into your books twice a week, once a month, once every other week, whatever you feel you need. I think that having a bookkeeper takes a huge load off of your shoulders, and getting somebody else to do your billing and your invoicing is just life-changing. So that would be the first person I would bring in if I were any of you out there as solopreneurs, and an intern that you can teach, and they can do some of the tasks that don't need someone at your level. And you're giving an opportunity to a student who is going to learn so much from you and mentor them. But I think that one of the best things was with boundaries. I don't know about you, but I love text. I love WhatsApp. But I do not want to conduct business that way. It can lead to disaster. It has not for me, thank God. However, I really, really feel that you should not be having major business decisions discussed over text or WhatsApp. It's not a good idea. And so I've actually had to tell a client this week in the nicest of ways, listen, I really want to keep my workflow as fluid as possible. And it would really, really help me if you have any action items that you'd like me to look at, that you don't put them into WhatsApp or text, that you email them to me, because I can reference my emails with clarity, and I can't do that with other forms of communication.
Yeah.
She got right on it, and she wrote me an email as per your request. So I think that you shouldn't be afraid to retrain your clients. And some of us, I'm guilty. I let her do it for a little while. And then it was just like, it just got to that point of no return, and I had to figure out a way out. And so it's okay. It's another course correction. It's okay for you to do that.
Yeah.
It truly is. Be mindful of that and think about that, because that is a huge time suck to constantly be attacked by text and WhatsApp.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah.
It's distracting.
Completely. I'd just rather just pick up the phone and have a conversation.
Well, I would too, but the younger generation doesn't want to do that.
I know. Well, Phyllis, we've got to wrap up here.
Sure.
How can folks connect with you if they want to connect with you outside the show?
Absolutely. I would love to hear from you. You can reach me at phyllis@harbingerdesignconsulting.com or info@harbingerdesignconsulting.com. You can also follow us on Instagram. It's DCI Studio. And we'd love to hear from you. And if anybody needs any help, please let me know. I have strategy sessions that we do, and I also have full coaching programs available.
Well, awesome. Well, Phyllis, thanks for your time again.
Thank you, and I'll see you in a week or two.
We will see you soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Nick. Bye.
Thanks, Phyllis. Bye. Hey, always fun to have Phyllis in the lounge. And we've got the next couple that we will have live in the lounge with Phyllis will actually be talks that her and I did together while I was here in New York. So that was really fun. We got to do face-to-face chats about different things. So super excited to share those with you coming up. Hey, want to give a shout out to VA Staffer. VA Staffer is a company that does all of my back-end web and digital marketing kind of stuff. So if you need somebody that can redo your website or just take over your website and do some things for you, they are a great solution, super, super affordable. I've been with them almost since they began, and so I don't know if I get special pricing or not, but I got to tell you, I have all of my websites have been done with VA Staffer. And just to throw out a number, I think the last website that I did was probably the one we did for the Shays Lounge. I got to tell you, that one was, I know, less than $1,000. And my Walls by Design website also done for less than $1,000. So if you are in the market for redoing your website and you don't want to spend a fortune, they're a great resource. So we have a link on our main website page on the right-hand side. Just look for VA Staffer. I think it says the ninjas of something, but it's a green button, so it's really hard to miss. And they're fantastic. They're working with several folks that listen to the show right now, and I've actually even had them go to work with my mother-in-law. That's how much I believe in them. I've sent them to help my mother-in-law in the organization that she works for. So go ahead and check out VA Staffer. So I got to tell you today, if you're hearing any kind of weird sound stuff and it doesn't sound exactly quite right, I'm in a quiet space, but it's my hotel room in New York. So if the sound sounds a little bit funny, I don't think it sounds bad, but it may be not quite as on point as when I'm in Studio B back in Denver. But we just wanted to give you a heads up on that. So sorry, it's not super fantastic sound this week, but I think it's definitely better than some of the sound quality that we've had in the past, especially when I was in North Carolina. Hey, this is a really great conversation that I want to share with you. I got to speak with Ellen O'Neill from Benjamin Moore. She's the creative director. Fantastic conversation about her transition over to Benjamin Moore and what she did to get really her dream job. So let's jump into my conversation with Ellen. So I'm so excited to introduce Ellen O'Neill from Benjamin Moore. Welcome to the Shays Lounge, Ellen.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Did you just start following me on Instagram? I think I just got that notice.
I did, and you don't have very many followers, so I had to help you out.
No, I don't. I'm really not into self-promotion. I'm only into, whatever happens, happens.
You're just I'm just going for it, right?
Well, yeah, I like living below the radar a little.
Well, you get enough attention, so that's probably okay.
Well, I don't know about that. Yeah, I suppose, yeah.
I was doing a lot of research on you, and you've been interviewed by some amazing places.
Yes, all to the efforts of our PR team over here.
They do a great job, don't they?
Yes, they do.
They do. Well, we're going to jump in with some I like to get to know our guest a little bit, so we're going to talk about your past. Is that okay?
It depends on what aspects of my past.
Well, you got involved with interior design maybe in a different way than probably most people that listen to my show. How did you get involved with interior design?
Okay. My baptism by fire was being hired by Ralph Lauren many years ago as a freelance stylist to help design the vignettes that the launch of their tabletop collection would go into. And it was supposed to be a 3-week gig, and I ended up staying there for 13 years and went through many iterations of product design, merchandising, display, and then sort of running a 35-person design department. But my whole focus was on home design as opposed to apparel, which is what people probably think of first when they think of Ralph Lauren. So by virtue of styling a boutique in Bloomingdale's with tabletop, I then was in creative services, styling the whole home furnishing showrooms, and they basically were sets that highlighted the collections that came out twice a year. So we were charged with building Tuscan villas and American farmhouses and teepee retreats in Colorado and grand estates in London, et cetera, et cetera. And the immersion into the language of those different venues and all the attendant accessories and the kind of lifestyle it pointed towards, I think was sort of my introduction into home design.
So they had hired you for 3 weeks. What were you doing before then?
I owned a store in New York called Ellen O'Neill's Supply Store. It was a woman's hardware store.
And that's a great story. I think I read that in my research about you. And you just kind of walked in one day and decided to buy the joint, right?
Yep.
Now, did you go to design school or anything formal?
No, I was a journalism major.
Oh, a journalism major. Okay. And before that, you were writing for different publications, or?
Well, in a very odd set of circumstances, I was working for Scientific American magazine. It was a very odd coupling, but it worked at the time.
Yeah, yeah. And now, how long have you been with Benjamin Moore?
3 years.
And did they seek out your advice, or was this something you interviewed for?
Former colleague, who at the time was the CMO of the company, he had an independent branding company that had done a project for Starwood Hotels and Resorts when I was working there. When he was asked to form a marketing division for Benjamin Moore, he tracked me down to be part of the team as the creative director.
So tell us a little bit, what does that mean? What are the duties that are involved with being the creative director for Benjamin Moore?
Well, that's a really interesting question that I ask everybody every day here. But essentially, the department didn't exist. I think a lot of our collateral, our messaging to the external public was divided among multiple agencies. And it was time to sort of form a formal marketing department and rein all that work internally so that you had a consistent brand view, messaging, and visual vocabulary. So I basically kind of came in and tackled the whole visual vocabulary because we had a lot of collateral that was in the stores circulating that was a little bit like inconsistent in that some had been produced in 2001 and some were dated. Interior design is a lot like fashion. You know, it's not as trendy as fashion, but there still is a sense of like shoulder pads are out, like stop showing rooms with balloon curtains and things like that.
Right.
So I had to kind of tackle it all and say, who are we, you know, in relation to our consumer base? We have 3 constituencies. One is the obviously the contractor community. Then we have the end user consumer who sort of does things on their own. And then we have the whole architect and design community. So different messaging to each of those constituencies because they have different focuses. But basically, the sort of relief to me is that I was presenting a product that was indisputably the top of its class in its product category.
Now, do you interact with interior designers on a regular basis?
I do. I mean, part of that is because I'm sort of immersed in that community from my other jobs. I would say my day-to-day here, I don't necessarily interact with designers on a day-to-day basis, but we do it with events. We collaborate with designers on events. We sponsor events that are largely populated by designers. And I think it's very important because they support us getting the message out, you know, that we have a premium product, we have the best color selection, and basically they're collaborators of ours.
Sure. Now, under your title as creative director, you get to be a part of, if not the final say, on the color of the year. Is that right?
Yes. Well, final say sounds dramatic, but final say is probably the CEO.
Oh, okay. All right. So tell us about what does that process involve? How do we get there?
Well, you know, when I first came here, I thought it was sort of a joke. That's like saying, you know, there's only one right way to dress, or there's only one perfect eye color or hair color, or the world is interesting because everybody has their own opinions. And with what criterion do you pronounce a color is the color of the year? So I fought it, as I typically do with some things I don't believe, for about 10 days. And I was convinced that all our competitive companies engage in this ritual. And if we didn't do it, the fallout would be much worse than if we did do it. So I kind of then got into it. And I'd worked a lot with color when I was at Ralph Lauren, putting together palettes for things as simple as like solid color sheet collection, or what are the towel colors of the year? And they would, you know, as the apparel division would say, what are the T-shirt colors going to be? And a lot of it has to do with sort of what is in the industry. But what struck me was for our product category, you don't repaint your house every year. I just finished painting my apartment and I never want to go through it again. You try and get the most long-lasting, applicable, evergreen kind of color you can pick so that you don't go in and out of style like a pink t-shirt does from season to season or year to year. So I became sort of intrigued with the psychology of this whole color of the year conundrum. And I thought we can pick a color so that it pops up on Google, but what we should really be doing is picking a palette so that the consumer is armed with something that is more than just one color, because in a home, one color intersects with many other colors. And what they really need is information or suggestions or combinations on how to sort of navigate color through a home. So when I'm standing in the entryway and I'm looking down a corridor and I see different rooms shooting out from that corridor, I am picking colors that work well together, that sequence well with each other, colors that don't look like a crazy person is living in the house, colors that have the same value, colors that sort of are a reflection of me, and not me as a creative director, but me as everyman. So I thought this is sort of a fun kind of parlor game, guessing everybody's color of the year, but what we do is try and embed into these campaigns color theory, color instruction, but not color pronouncement. So we can show you what is emerging in the industry with all the other compatible product categories, like what is happening with bedding, what is happening with kitchen cookery, what is happening with furniture design and lighting, et cetera, or accessories in the home. But those aren't necessarily the colors you would put on the wall. And so we look at what is emerging in the industry, and then we come back to the studio and fill the walls with thousands of pictures and start and say and recognize color clusters. Like it's almost like a heat map of colors, and say, we keep seeing this, but we see that, but blah, 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 and sort of make sense and put a palette together that will embrace all of these color cues that we're seeing. I call our product the backup singer. We envelop the room so that your color personality works well within the space, but we're not saying, as other paint companies do, paint your whole room fuchsia, paint your whole room green. We have a softer approach to it.
Now, this year in particular, from your perspective, you guys got a lot of press with this year's pronouncement of the color of the year, Simply White. How did you react to the press that immediately came around? I'm just going to say it wasn't fantastic in the beginning. What was your take on how people reacted to the color of the year?
Oh, we were really excited. I mean, I don't know what you were reading, but what we were reading was really good press. And I mean, I know there was this ho-hum thing.
Right, that's what I'm talking about.
But what they didn't continue to read or immerse themselves in was what was the campaign around that selection and why was it valid? And when they read that, I think there were a couple of articles that then sort of self-corrected and said, when we heard it, we were ho-hum, but when we saw the collateral and read the campaign, we were like, that's brilliant. And that was really redeeming, I think, for all of us, because it was a controversial choice. And we knew it was controversial, but it was true. It stemmed from the fact that all the inquiries we get, and when the consumer emails us or customer service calls us, it's always tons of it is about a conundrum about white. And we pay attention to that. We wanted to answer that. Another indicator is we ran out of inventory on our white cards, and it caused like a whole commotion in the stores with the dealers and the consumers, and we had to go out and like overnight shoot a new campaign and get a new card out there.
Sure.
So we knew white. It wasn't necessarily a sexy topic or we're going to pick a color and it's going to become a nail polish on Monday, but it was really an important color discussion for the interiors community.
Yeah, I thought it was fantastic. Like, you probably don't know this, but I'm a paint contractor in Denver, Colorado.
So I know who I'm talking to, Nick.
Yeah. And then I've been involved with Benjamin Moore for almost 25 years. And never have I heard the discussion around the color of the year as big as I've heard it this year.
Well, thank you for saying that. And I hope you sort of phoned that into our senior leadership team.
No, I did. In fact, I had a conversation with Mike around this conversation, and he actually called me to talk about it. And that's how I think this whole conversation, me talking with you, got started. I had read an article that was in Huffington Post.
He was the ho-hum guy, I think, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I basically answered him and said what I just said.
Right. I remember that. You're the guy that stood up for us. Thank you, Nick.
Yeah. You know, the funny thing about it was in the post that I replied to him with, I said, I don't know if you've looked at your CEO's home because it had just been published somewhere, but it was all in different shades of white. And so I just thought that it was so ironic that he would, kind of slam the color of the year for being simply white.
Oh, you mean Diane von Furstenberg's Huffington? I'm sorry. Yes. I remember that. I thought you meant Mike's house was published.
No.
What did Mike say about it? Because Mike was nervous.
I think he was thankful that I stood up for Benjamin Moore. And I think, he believed that the same way I believed that it was getting you guys really great press and it was really starting the conversation. And it took a little while for everybody to kind of realize how amazing it was. Kind of, now we're looking at it in hindsight kind of, because you guys are already looking at almost getting ready for 2017's color, right?
Yes.
Looking back on it, I think it was a hard move. And since you guys knew that it was going to be a little controversial, I'm guessing you guys didn't think it was going to be as controversial as maybe the public made it to be.
No, I love controversy, which is why I was really excited about doing it, because I think if you go to the places we go to sort of do, the research or get the cues or see what's in the air, you can make a case for any color. At one point last year, I was thinking maybe it's pink, and then people started coming out with that also. I mean, a lot of paint companies, they outsource to these sort of color trend forecasters, but I want our stuff to be original. And I also wanted to reflect, as I said, the color conundrums that we read and answer questions about every day from the consumer. So I wanted to be true and authentic and applicable to people's design issues. So color forecasters don't necessarily dig down onto that level. They just like the sexy part of, I was in Nairobi and I saw a lot of amber in necklaces on, the local women. So I also saw amber in Amsterdam, so it must be amber. Well, a room in amber would be a pretty depressing place to be in for more than 10 minutes. So we look for different signals. I knew it would be controversial, but nobody had ever picked white as the color of the year. And there is so much story to it. I knew it was a discussion or a conversation we could keep going for at least the following 11 months of the year, keep it activated. So sure. He was nervous. I remember the day we had to make the case, and he kind of he went white, and he looked at me and he said, I get it with you telling it to me in the room, but if you're not going to be out there telling it to everybody, I hope everybody gets it. And I said, no, we'll do it. Between the campaign, the photography, and all the webinars the team has done and the presentations and things like that, I think it's out there and people, then it sort of took on its own life. And multiple companies have then followed suit, and Sherwin-Williams picked a white and Valspar picked a white, and I think Glidden picked a white within 6 weeks.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I had told Mike was I was in the Sherwin-Williams event, like Color Mix or something like that. And when I was there, I was in this room with hundreds of interior designers, and everybody was talking about Benjamin Moore. Of course, they weren't necessarily, saying great things. And even the person from up front kind of made a snide comment. But I was like, I took a step back and I was like, everybody's talking about Benjamin Moore. Isn't that part of the whole idea of marketing a color of the year, is to get people talking about you?
Yes, we want to provoke that conversation. And, there still is debate about, is white a color? And that to me is sort of, this helps address that conversation. I mean, we have 250 whites. And out of our top 10 colors at Benjamin Moore, 5 are whites. White is a color. White is a design tool. White has shades and layers and the ability to transform and provide all these different nuances in a room. It also, from a contractor's point of view, it's a way to freshen up. I mean, there's so many capabilities of that one color. Mm-hmm. You can't say that about most colors. I'm happy that it did provoke conversation. And I think now the whole sort of parlor game part of it, those are the people that are like white, and you're like, why not white? Listen, it's made this year a very tough act to follow. That's all I can say.
Oh, I bet. I can't imagine what you guys are going to come up with for 2017.
Yeah, it's been an interesting process.
Well, I have one more question for you real quick because I know you have to go. But you mentioned earlier that you just got finished painting your own apartment.
Yes.
What colors did you use?
I used raccoon fur in my kitchen, which is a tiny little pantry, which is a soft gray-black. And I painted the rest of the apartment Chantilly lace, which is a white that is a little bit warmer because I have a north-facing apartment with a wall of windows, and so I get a lot of indirect light, which is a cool northern light, and I needed a little bit of a counterbalance there.
Yeah.
So Chantilly has just a little sort of underpinning of warmth.
We're actually using that color on a project today. I just ordered it this morning.
Oh, well, there you go. Do you feel better now?
Absolutely. You put a big smile on my face.
Oh, good, Nick. I'm happy.
Well, Ellen, I know you've got to run. Thanks a ton for spending time with me.
Thank you. Thank you for your support.
Oh, you're welcome. And where do you want to send people? I always ask people, where's the best place to send people for more information on you or on Benjamin Moore?
The website.
Okay, we'll put that in the show notes. Thanks a ton, Ellen.
Information on me. They don't need anything on me, but they can go to the website for the company.
Okay.
All right.
That's great. Thanks a ton.
Thank you, Nick.
So it was super fun to talk to Ellen and get her on the show. It actually took us quite a bit to get that arranged because her schedule is so crazy. So it was very fun to talk to Ellen and hear how she got to her dream job, really. Hey, we have a Benjamin Moore event coming up here in Denver on May 19th. So if you are in Denver, you definitely want to go check that out. They're going to be talking a lot about their products, and it's going to be a fantastic networking opportunity. There's going to be designers and architects and other tradespeople like paint contractors like myself that are going to be there. I'm going to try and put a link in the show notes so that you can register for that. We have another event, Fred Burns. I've talked about this, I think, on the last show. His event is a free event. You can actually be anywhere. You just phone in. It's a teleseminar. And he's doing that. He's doing that on May 24th. We'll put a link in the show notes of how you can register for that. But it's the title of that teleseminar is Creating a Killer Bio. Promote the star that you are. So Fred is a guy who works with interior designers all over the country. He's actually one of the reasons I'm doing this today. So Fred comes from a journalism background, so he's really good at the copywriting piece. So that can help you on your website and whenever you're, kind of filling out those profiles. We are what Google says we are. So we have to make sure that we are putting the right content on the web. So a great resource. The last event I want to talk about is that I have a webinar coming up for you, and been working on this for a little bit. We're going to be doing webinars on a monthly basis, and this is going to be our very first one, and they're going to be free. If you've not done a webinar, it's pretty easy. You'll just get on your computer and you'll be able to kind of log in and listen to the conversation. I think there's going to be a way for you to interact and have questions at the end. I think that's kind of one of the big benefits of doing a webinar. I've never hosted a webinar before, so this is going to be a learning experience. But the webinar is going to be on June 9th, and we're scheduling it for 7:30 Mountain Standard Time. So if you're on the East Coast, that's 9:30 East Coast time. And of course, 6:30 if you're on the West Coast over in California or Portland or something like that. But the topic, we're going to be talking about websites. So Jay Hunter from VA Staffer is going to help me lead this. And we're going to be talking about the 5 key elements that you need to have on your interior design website. Jay's worked on a lot of websites, and so we're going to dive into this topic of what do you need to have on your website. So excited about that. I'm going to try and get a link on our website for registration up this week. But put it on your calendars, June 9th. Again, it's free, and it's going to be 7:30 Mountain Standard Time. The last thing I'll mention, Benjamin Moore, one of our sponsors for the show, it wouldn't happen without them. I've been working with Benjamin Moore for a very long time, maybe 25 years, give or take a little bit, but they're the reason why I am in paint contracting today. And when I first started out, I didn't know a whole lot about painting. I have learned a lot of things the hard way. I've always been able to go in the stores and get the help that I needed on a particular problem. They're fantastic on that customer service piece. And that's what we need in our vendors. We really need people that are going to support us and really be able to help us get the answers for our customers. So if that's, you need product sheets, or you need deck fans, or you need understanding of why to select one Benjamin Moore product over another, they're going to be a great solution. So definitely go check them out at your local store, as well as connect with your local interior design rep, because they have interior design reps all over the country that are just there to work with you. So I got to say, we've got some big name guests coming up, and I'm super excited to be able to share those with you. We are still looking for sponsors for the show. I've put links over on our website for folks to contact me. And the cool thing is, people are contacting me. I've actually got 2 different advertisers that have reached out already, and I'm going to be talking to them later today about potential sponsorship opportunities. And then we are also reaching out to other vendors that some of the designers that I've had on the show are helping me connect with. So super excited. Once we get 2 more sponsors, we're going to be able to go to a 2-show format per week. So I'm super excited about that, because I have so much content to share with you guys. And when I'm talking with these designers and they're like, well, when's my show going to go up? I'm like, well, maybe July, maybe August. So that's how many interviews I've been doing, and I'm just super excited to be able to ramp that up and be able to do 2 shows and get 2 shows out to you each and every week. So that was a big show today. Thanks for hanging with me. I actually forgot to say this today. Please don't forget to connect with me on our website at theshadesloungepodcast.com. And then also over in iTunes, I would love to get a review. We still have some copies of Amy Fleury's book, Press for Success. And if you could give me a review in iTunes, take a screenshot of it, and then email me to me@nickmay.co, we would love to get you a copy of that book. So until next time, I'm Nick May, reminding you to keep dreaming big and keep designing a great design business. See ya.